I'm Paula Eddy Wilcox, and welcome to this episode of Game of Leadership, the podcast for curious leaders. In today's episode, we're going to be looking at the leadership journey of our guest and what unique traits bring them to be the leader they are today. Who knows what we're going to discover together, so I hope you enjoy the episode. Welcome to today's episode of Game of Leadership, the podcast for curious leaders. And today is all about Karim Doukar, our fresh prince of retail. Hi, Karim, how are you?
Hi, Paula. I'm awesome and so excited to be here and have this conversation.
Oh, thank you. Delighted to have you. I've been following you on LinkedIn for a while, and I know our mutual friend Alex always gets excited about your content, the types of things that you're sharing. And really, I'm excited about what makes you the leader you are today, and we'll get into that in a minute. For those of you that don't know Karim and his Fresh Prince origins, here's a little bit about Karim, and forgive me because I will just read this so I get it right. Karim, aka the Fresh Prince of Retail, is a super cool retail consultant. What makes him stand out is that his unique blending of executive coaching, corporate training, and retail operations excellence. Karim has worked all over the world and delivered corporate training to many household name brands, and he learned his trade at Selfridges, Harrods, Harvey Nicks. We're in very good company here, everyone. And then went on to huge international roles with Aldo in the Middle East. And Karim also has an intense passion for coaching and making training fun. Well, again, we're in excellent company there, Karim, because we've both trained all over the world. We've both coached, and it's always exciting to share that leadership discussion with like-minded folks. So welcome along today.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's an honor to be here.
Oh, fabulous. Well, look, something I ask every guest that comes on is to share their leadership story and a little bit about the Fresh Prince origins, of course. Where did you start? This isn't obviously all about your CV. We want to know the good stuff, the stuff that isn't on the CV. That makes you are today.
Yeah, I think I always talk about my roots. I've got Moroccan heritage, and my parents coming over in the swinging 60s to the UK. Forward thinking, really, for their children to have a great education is where I always start, and I think that keeps me humble. I think as a leader, definitely being humble is something that's really important. And then I kind of didn't know what I wanted to do at uni, believe it or not. So I did just a general management degree, and on the side, as a side hustle, I guess funding my university days out and stuff, I kind of was in retail, worked for House of Fraser, which was then called Kendall's in Manchester. It was like the it store, if you like, David Beckham and all these kind of footballers were there. And at the end of university, I was like, okay, what am I going to do now? And then just kind of fell into retail and a retail career, and did quite a lot of that. And coincidentally, I was quite shy as a kid, and would never think of going online or calling myself the Fresh Prince of Retail or doing any of those crazy kind of things. But after getting into retail, I was kind of thrown into a training position during at Selfridges. We started opening a huge new store in the Trafford Centre in Manchester, and after 1 week of being the first kind of manager recruited, it was kind of right, okay, you need to train everyone else on the systems and stuff. And I was like, wait, I've just graduated. I'm like 20 something years old. What do I know about retail compared to all these other magnificent people who've been there, done that, wore the t-shirt? And they're like, no, you'll be fine. I was like, really, I'm not fine. But they kind of threw me into the deep end. I had some fun with that. I made a joke, and kind of overcome my fear of public speaking. And then I guess I've always kind of been in and out of training development along my retail journey. Kind of to fast forward a bit, kind of decided to pursue retail operations just because it was kind of higher paid. And then, worked my way up, and then eventually kind of thought to myself, well, I really want to get back into the training, because while smashing targets is great and I've traveled the world and all that kind of stuff, I really love people, and seeing people grow and develop that I've worked alongside, or see them grow from, part-timer to store manager to regional manager. That's the thing that really motivates me, and that's, who I want to be moving forward. So yeah, that's a little bit of my journey.
Oh, fantastic. So, there's lots in there, and obviously always only share what you'd like to share, Karim. But I loved hearing a little bit there about that transition. You mentioned that you were quite shy as a child, and that where the House of Fraser just sort of threw you into that training role. And what was that like at
It was petrifying. Like, I was the kind of kid, like, I'm sure I could have got better in my university degree if I didn't balls up my presentation, that you do for your dissertation thing. And it was really horrifying. Like, I think the word that we described today as anxiety is probably, I had all those things. Like, I was nervous. I was like, I'd get cold sweats, be unable to talk, and just kind of didn't have a clue about how to do a presentation or something like that. And then there was a film called Pulp Fiction. Way back when, and it talks about I think there was a joke about like an uncomfortable silence or something like that. And I remember the first time I gave a presentation to a group of retailers was I'd gone in the first day and stuff, and I was still nervous as hell. I was like, can I really do this? And I just froze for 2 minutes, and then I just said to the audience, was that a comfortable silence? And everyone just started laughing. And then to this day, I don't know what I would have done had they not laughed.
You'd have found some other way out of it, but brilliant. And it's so interesting, isn't it, how people have differing levels of comfort with silence. And of course, as coaches, we know that getting comfortable with that silence is very much part of what we do, because it allows people time and space to think for themselves and then respond when they're ready. So I love the idea of you just standing there in silence 2 minutes and then, asking that question, them all finding it very funny. But I suspect some of that would have been nervous laughter on their part because they didn't know what else to do.
100%. And, like when I got into coaching, I really didn't understand. And I think, so many people still don't understand to this day what coaching is. And, in terms of the pure coaching and just asking open questions and using that silence and having that pause and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's, it's very different to training. Training is obviously where you're sharing knowledge and stuff. But I find that these days that once my awareness of what coaching was and going through the whole ICF model and then training that model to other people and stuff, I just found it's just a profound skill whereby you can kind of switch the tables, if you like, and one of my sort of kind of training styles to make it fun and interactive and different and almost like a leadership style is to ask loads of questions and to almost, take that, if you like, nervousness or, I do a lot of training within corporates, and I'm always kind of thinking when I walk into the corporates, obviously I'm more confident now. I walk into corporates and I'm just like, I'm sure they're all thinking there, who is this guy? Who's this Fresh Prince of Retail? Who's Karim? Why is he qualified to speak to us? And when I actually get into the room and start, asking them questions and stuff and saying, okay, you tell me a little bit about yourself, give me an introduction, or, play different games with them and stuff. And then they're kind of, put under pressure a little bit and they have to talk. And I have a lot of fun with that, I think.
Well, it's lovely seeing and hearing your enthusiasm there and that passion coming through around the training piece. And you mentioned the word games there, Karim. And of course, in our second episode with you next week, we'll be getting into your take on game and leadership together and sharing some of your experience of how you've brought game, play, whatever it is your take is, into your sort of day-to-day leadership, as it were. But, in terms of you as a leader then, how has well, you mentioned coaching. So just for our audience's purposes, when did that transition from trainer to coach take place then? And how did that come about?
Yeah, well, basically, I'd been in retail, all my career and stuff, and got to, the higher echelons. And I was a country manager in the Middle East. And someone came and did like a corporate training day. It was on assertiveness. And I was kind of thinking to myself, I used to do these kind of days about 20 years ago when I was in Selfridges and stuff. So, yeah, I want to get back into that and stuff. And when I came back to the UK, transitioning back to the UK from living in Dubai in the Middle East was kind of difficult. And I had someone call me up, and I didn't know at the time, but she was using coaching tactics on me. So she kind of, I thought I applied for a job. It wasn't a job. It was kind of like a coaching opportunity to become a qualified coach and stuff. And she was she was asking that typical coaching question, which is, what's stopping you getting into training development? So the question just was, what's stopping you? And it really stopped me in my track and thought, actually, I need to open my mindset a little bit. I need to understand there's a whole nother world there. And just because I don't have some piece of paper currently, which would almost stop me in the past with CIPD and all that kind of stuff, possibly I am qualified. I've got all this experience. I've worked in lots of different stores with different brands, with different people, and had such an amazing experience that there's almost like an onus on me to share that knowledge. And to kind of understand, what training is, what coaching is, and use that moving forward. So that was like a really pivotal moment for me to get involved in coaching and the training world.
Yeah, lovely. And do you find that your coaching is more focused on the retail environment, supporting people in that because you're able to then bring your experience into that?
And this is another part where I kind of really differentiate from everyone else, is that yes, I am that retail expert, but I've done so much corporate training in other places as well. And I love servant leadership. One of my favorite leadership styles is servant leadership, and that can be broken down into 7 characteristics, and there's active listening and empathy, and I could talk all day about servant leadership. But I actually found that once I got more into coaching, that naturally that leadership style fits in with the servant leadership model. And that's a really brilliant way of kind of being modest, being part of the team, keeping people enthusiastic, and really leading in a inspirational way, not in a kind of authoritarian, old school kind of take you into the back and shout at you. And I don't think that method would work anymore, but I really feel that servant leadership has got so much to offer the world, and the best leaders in the world for me, whether that's, my mom or whoever, the people have inspired me on this incredible journey, have been servant leaders.
So, okay, 2 things there. One, I would love for you to share with our listeners what they could do if they wanted to be more of a servant leader. That's one part. But secondly, I would love to come back to then who's inspired you along the way on your journey. Take it in either order. What would you prefer?
Yeah, I mean, I'd start with my mum. I know it's like a bit cliche, but my mum came from a village, of sheer poverty, really, in Morocco, in the Moroccan mountains. Beautiful village, like the Lake District, without the lakes. Never went to school, never had an education, kind of escaped through to Spain, and then, married my father. They both then came to England, and although she never had an education, she was, I think that if she did have an education, I feel my mum would be that kind of person who would be like the prime minister. She gets on with everyone. She learns things just by watching them, like, sewing or whatever it may be. And she actually started working in the school, and just her people skills. Everyone speaks so highly of her. I've never met a person who speaks negatively. Obviously, I'm biased because she's my mum and stuff, but just her cooking talent, her personality talent, her what she does for other people is just phenomenal. So, she's a major influencer of me. There are others, obviously a Manchester United fan as well. I think Sir Alex Ferguson, who managed Manchester United for many, many years, who was humble enough to, and fortunate enough to meet on many occasions. And I saw him speak, and he's just a brilliant, man to man or person to person, human to human, earthling to earthling manager that gets the best out of everyone and really knows how to those small details in leadership, rather than you work for a company, you're a number, you're a person. Obviously, that it was highlighted, and any mistakes that he made were kind of amplified because they were in the press. But he just knew how to get the best out of everyone, and those around Old Trafford, even the tea person would be important, and he'd treat them with respect and integrity and love and all that kind of stuff. And for me, I really look up to that kind of leader that really, makes a massive thing out of a small thing. I remember once being with a regional manager of mine, and we were at, we'd just gone to Starbucks or something. It was really busy Saturday and stuff. And he just, said to the team, right, it's really important for you to take your tray and put it away and just help the people because they're obviously really struggling or whatever. And I think those small details mean such, a massive thing for me. So that's that. Influence. What was the second question? Sorry.
I'll tell you in a second, but that lovely idea of the smallest things can have the greatest impact. Helping others, to clear up the tables or whatever it might be, so that their day's a little bit improved. It's passing on that kindness and being considerate and respectful of others, and make a huge difference. So it was about your inspiration. Oh goodness me, now it's gone out of my head what the other one was. Oh goodness me, now
something to relate to servant leadership, possibly.
That's it. So it was all about what if our listeners would like to become a certain servant leader. What are the traits, or what are the things that they could do?
There's like several
more of.
There are several characteristics of servant leadership, but the first one is active listening. And until I became a coach, I didn't really understand how complicated listening is. Obviously God, whether you believe in God or not, but I believe in God. So, we have two ears and one mouth, and it's a really simple thing. And I've heard the phrase coined, you should listen more than you speak. But I feel like there's so much more to it than that. As a coach, you kind of have to listen out for what people are saying, what people are not saying, their tonality. There's so much involved in it. The choice of words, all that kind of stuff. And the basis of servant leadership kind of starts with active listening and really listening to you and your teams. What are your team saying? And obviously being a leader, no matter whether it's in retail or wherever you are, you have people above you, people below you, people who are your peers. So listening to all of that, I think is really important, that you're taking the time to reflect. Then, the other buzzword of the moment, I think, ever since COVID, we've all kind of jumped on this word is empathy, being able to really empathize with others. I think COVID has highlighted that 10 times. You might see someone today wearing a COVID mask, and you might think to yourself, well, COVID finished however long ago. But being able to empathize and think about, well, that person may have had a family member who died via COVID, or they may not be quite well, and that kind of stuff. I think it's a major skill that I think everyone, whether they work in retail or wherever they work in any company, or even as a human being, you've got to have empathy for sure.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. As a human being, basic consideration of others, having empathy for others. You don't know what's going on with that person, and coming at a situation with judgment and your own lens, not theirs, isn't helpful. You may make assumptions that are completely way off. So stop, think before you take any action or make any responses to anything, because then you'll be able to take a considered view, try and put yourself in their shoes, all of these great things that are great leadership skills.
I think you've, sorry to interrupt you, you've touched on that, another great word there, which is again part of servant leadership, which is an awareness. In retail, you have to be aware of, if you're a retail manager, a store manager, or even higher, you've got to be aware of so many things: your team, the timing, the customer, the clients, the energy in the store, all that kind of stuff. And I think having an awareness of everything that's going on is a major important, knowing when to press someone's buttons, when someone's demotivated, when someone's happy, all that kind of stuff. That awareness is also really, really important, and an important skill.
Yeah, and it's that, let's say it's our team, knowing the strengths and the weaknesses within your team, so that you can use all of those moving parts to the best of outputs for the team, for the individuals, and for the organization, is definitely a key skill in leadership. That awareness of what's going on, being able to keep all the plates spinning, not overwhelming yourself or the others around you. It really is a fine balance, isn't it? And people talk about work-life balance, and I've even heard some people say, but it's not a thing. Work-life balance isn't a thing, because life is life. Maybe, I don't know what their thinking is necessarily. I've had different conversations with people about this over different times, but whatever your take is on work and life and that balance, when you're in your leadership role or leading yourself through life, whatever that leadership role looks like for you, you've got to find that balance that's right for
and I
you
think
and those that are around you.
Influence is a big word for a leader. And I think, those who positively influence, are aware of all those things. They do actively listen. They have got that empathy, and they do understand people on a really deep level. And they kind of, lead by example and lead from the front. I think that's also really important. Gone are the days where there are people in retail who, the manager sits in the back and does the schedules and put his or her feet up and, on the chair, and doesn't get involved. I think, those times have gone. And I think, being able to influence people it's really easy, or much easier to influence people when you're kind of telling them good things, if that makes sense. But I remember as a retailer, having to tell customers, unfortunately, sometimes they can't have a refund, or, team members, they can't have a day off. But I think there's a way of, even if you're telling them something negative, there's a way of influencing them, and that obviously applies to the empathy and the active listening and all that kind of stuff. But I've seen, even within retail, like lots of horrible situations where, I don't know, retailers have had to let people go, for example, but it's been done in such a stylish, amazing way that I remember once letting go of an employee, and they kind of came to me and said, that's the best, I understand the situation is really horrible and blah, 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 but you're still the best manager I've ever worked with and stuff. And I was like, I just didn't expect that. It was not about me, but it's about, the team and doing things in a professional way. And I've seen other leaders also let people go and kind of support them on their next journey, helping them to get a CV, and I'll get you connected to people I know and stuff like that. When the leadership is kind of done like that, with such influence and such style, then it's great, really. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's that care and that kindness. It comes back to the kindness piece again, doesn't it? For others, looking out for them. I'm always a believer in karma, Karim. So, what you give out, what you reap, you sow, or what you sow, you reap, whatever. You reap what you sow. That's the one I was looking for. I got there in the end. And it does, I've really seen that play out. People who in their leadership position, they abuse, let's say they're abusing their power in that position. for a negative outcome and not a positive, and it's having a negative influence on those around, you can't continue to give out that negative energy, influence, whatever it is you're doing, without expecting something to come back to you at some point.
100%. And from a coaching kind of perspective, obviously when you're getting your accreditation and stuff, you kind of do pro bono coaching and pro bono training development, and so much good stuff has come back to me. And I know my wife at one point during COVID was like, you're taking this like a full-time job, like why are you giving so much free coaching out and stuff like But then I've kind of got major roles on the back of that, and you don't give to receive, like with presents and stuff. You just it's kind of, you're just helping people and genuinely caring, and kind of almost like the sales piece, I guess. Once you forget about the sale and focus on the needs of the customer or the needs of the person you're helping, it's almost like God's law or whoever's law kind of comes back, and I think it's called the law of reciprocity, or I can't remember, reciprocation.
I can't say it either.
It kind of comes back to you and treats you really nicely if you're full of kindness and stuff. So it's great. Absolutely.
Well, that's a lovely note to finish on today, Karim. We've covered so much. From shyness to the Fresh Prince of Retail, big influence from your mum, and some of your lovely other stories there as well, and a little bit about servant leadership, which gives everybody a massive insight into the type of leader that you are, where you're considering others, you're considering the empathy piece, the awareness piece, the active listening, and all the other things that come into that. So it's been lovely to get to know you a little bit, and I'm excited because I know we've got you for 2 more episodes. So next week
it's been awesome. Every day is a school day, and it's been amazing learning from you and all your other guests that's been on your show as well.
Oh, that's great to hear. So good to hear. And absolutely. I say that the day that I stop learning is the day that I should stop doing anything. So I do love a bit of learning myself, and again, likewise, learning from yourself and all my other listeners, as well as benefiting all our my guests, which in turn benefits all of the listeners. So I'm excited for next week when we're talking about your game, your take, even I can't get my words straight today, your take on game and leadership, Karim. But have a great week in between, and thank you so much for today.
No, thank you. It's been an honor and a pleasure. Catch you soon.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Game of Leadership, the podcast for curious leaders. Today we listen to the leadership journey of our guest and how they got to be where they are today. Now, in the chats, we talked about all sorts of different things, and there are lots of bits and pieces in there that are going to mean something different to each and every one of you. You will all have your own unique takeaways, so I encourage you to do a bit of reflection now and see what this might mean for your leadership moving forwards. I'm Paula Eddy Wilcox, and I look forward to seeing you on Game of Leadership, the podcast for curious leaders, next week. Bye for now.